Welcome back to the Stack Shack Sports Show. It is free agency bonanza. Things are going crazy here all around the NFL. Today, I want to talk about some of the big signings, specifically with running backs. And then towards the end of today's video, we're going to talk about Justin Fields. What are the Bears going to do with Justin? What can they do at this point? I mean, the window is closing for real. But let's start by talking about the running backs. In a year where last offseason, we spent some time even on this channel talking about running backs not getting contracts. Was the running back position dead? Was it over? I gave some points about talking like, really, when you're talking points on a team, are kickers maybe as valuable as running backs? Like, how much of an impact do running backs have? How many other positions and players affect whether a running back is going to be effective? We talked about all of it in last offseason, and this offseason, I think people are singing a bit of a different tune. Now, yes, there have been some, obviously, running backs leaving places. Huge names like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Joe Mixon from the Bengals, longtime player there. So we have seen some movement. Austin Eckler moving on as well. But you know what I am not noticing is a bunch of out-of-work running backs. Yes, they might be changing teams. Aaron Jones leaving the Packers. But it looks like they're all getting picked up by other teams. So, very interesting to me. You look at a player like Derrick Henry, who I think a lot of us have looked at as maybe kind of a good barometer, at least in my opinion, for how the running back market is going, because he is a little bit older, right? So it isn't a rookie deal kind of running backs, which I think we've all seen as being valuable. If you're getting a running back very cheap on a rookie deal, that's really been the kind of the playbook for running backs, is get them on their rookie deal, don't give them a second contract. Well, Derrick Henry's definitely beyond a second contract. He's really, I would say, on a third contract, maybe a fourth if you want to, how you want to look at it. But he gets a 2-year, $16 million deal. That's pretty decent. We also said last season, you know what? The best running backs are still going to get paid. Look at McCaffrey, highest paid running back in the league. You can still build around a running back if you have the right other pieces, right? Do the San Francisco 49ers have a situation where they're not paying their quarterback? Yes. It's why the Packers, when they signed Josh Jacobs, picked him up. I said, nope, you're not going to have room for him and Aaron Jones. And then what did we see last video? As I was recording it, the Packers went ahead and essentially released Aaron Jones to go look for some other options. Derrick Henry getting a 2-year, $16 million deal. That's a pretty reasonable deal in my estimation. And he got picked up quick by a contender. So it shows you that these top teams, Ravens, Eagles, we're going to talk about this tampering rule in a minute. The Texans, as Joe Mixon goes there. These are playoff teams. These are teams that, they're worth something. They're trying to win games. They're trying to win Super Bowls. So it does show you that these running backs are still valuable on winning teams, on Super Bowl teams. Running back position is not completely dead. You just got to find value. Okay? It's not going to get paid running backs like they were maybe a few years ago. But if you're good, you're still going to get picked up. If you're Derrick Henry, the Ravens want to talk to you quickly. I think this specific move, as we start to get into some details on the specific pickups, I think this is one of the better signings. The Ravens have, unfortunately, over the past few years, had an absolute revolving door at running back because nobody can stay healthy and nobody can take on the workload of an offense that runs the ball kind of more than anybody else. Lamar ends up being the leading rusher just because he's the one that plays the most games. Now, I'm not saying Derrick Henry is completely without injury. He is getting a little bit older, but he's a big body back who can be the feature back and take on a pretty significant workload. I think it works out really, really well for Baltimore. Potentially up to $20 million for the young man. He's only 30, but 30 on a running back, that's starting to get a little rough. But I do think he's the perfect fit. You already have their speedster. They already have Lamar Jackson. Get in a big battering ram, right? As they say it here on CBS Sports. Bring in a big-bodied back. Change of pace. It's going to be great. They do have other, running backs in the room. So it's not like he's the only back. But I think this is one of the better fits at running back. I think the other really, really good fit is the Eagles. Now, did they tamper? Philadelphia right now is denying it. This is a kind of a breaking story as I'm recording this, a few hours ago as well. The Eagles, there's some rumors that did somebody talk to Barkley before you were allowed to? I don't think so. We'll see. James Franklin, former coach at Penn State, he suggested it. It's cool for Barkley to go back to Philadelphia, right back to the state that he played college ball in. But it's going to be interesting. There's no comment right now from the NFL. Apparently, the New York Giants have also not reached out to the league, right, according to some sources. But we'll have to see how that one plays out, see if there's any sorts of fines or improper handling there. In NFL free agency, you're allowed to talk to players, obviously, but only between certain windows. Something I think the college football world should maybe take a look at. If you want to go see that video, go check it out. It's on my channel on how to fix college football and the craziness of the transfer portal and how college football really doesn't have these tampering periods that they really should have. So, Eagles pick up Barkley. We'll have to wait and see if there's any fines or any penalties associated with this. As of right now, Philadelphia is denying it. The NFL has not commented, and the Giants aren't seeking anything. It's really just James Franklin suggesting it, and kind of indirectly, to an extent. And so we'll see. We'll see how that plays out. But I think this is also a really, really good pickup. I cannot wait to see Saquon in a reasonable offense. You look at his numbers and what he's been able to do in New York with the Giants, with Daniel Jones as his quarterback in the last couple of years, where he's sitting in a situation where there is no threat, really, of wide receivers burning anybody. Now you insert him into an offense. Now, this offense did lose the center, Kelsey, the centerpiece of that offensive line, your quarterback of the offensive line. Eagles do lose that. And I do think this is somewhat of a move to say, hey, our offensive line is probably not going to be quite as good next year. We need a back to elevate it. If you watched my video on how the whole situation with running backs was going last offseason, you'll know I made the comment that the offensive line is often more impactful to a team than a running back is. And that's why so many more offensive linemen are getting more money. Tight ends are starting to get more money. Kickers potentially are getting more money as far as the league minimum. They were down there with the kickers, right? And I was making the argument, if you have a really good offensive line, you can elevate a less than ideal back. Well, I think the Eagles are looking at that on the flip side and saying, we have a less than optimal offensive line. We need a back that can make that happen, that can elevate this offensive line. Now, I still think the offensive line is going to be good. It's not like everybody retired. Jason retired. He's a big piece of that. but I think they'll be okay. But to put Saquon in a team that has two dangerous wide receivers in Brown and Smith, and a quarterback in Jalen Hurts, who we can have some concerns over, but I think we can all agree he's better than Daniel Jones. Probably moves a little better than Daniel. Probably's got a bit better arm than Daniel. I think most would agree he's probably a better leader than Daniel. At least we've seen it, right? Hurts made it to a Super Bowl and kind of kept it close there for a good portion of it against Mahomes. I've never seen Daniel Jones do that kind of a thing. So to put Saquon on a team like this where, they like Goddard, they got Smith and Brown, Jalen Hurts, there are weapons all over the Eagles. It does feel to me maybe a touch desperate what they've looked like as an organization this offseason, making a lot of moves and some splashy ones like this one for Saquon. But, it's the NFL. Most teams are desperate. You got to win games. You got to win playoff games. And Sirianni's kind of coaching for his job, I think, this upcoming season. I was of the opinion that you should probably just get rid of him after last season because I don't know what happened, but it wasn't pretty in Philadelphia at the end of the season. I put a lot of blame on the coach for that situation. They decided to stick it out, another season. But it does feel to me like this is kind of a, hey, we're loading you up. Coach better coach, right? We can't have locker room problems or not playing hard or all these mistakes. Whatever the problem was last season, because again, it wasn't like there were a ton of cluster injuries or any big problems except for, the Super Bowl offensive coordinator leaves and they looked good to start and then things just became a train wreck in Philadelphia. I don't feel like we still have a great understanding of what happened, but it does feel like they're loading up to say, Coach Sirianni, you got to get a couple of playoff wins. You got to get us deep. We cannot have that abysmal kind of ending to the season again. We got to see some wins and some consistent ones. So I think this was another really, really exciting. This, honestly, might be the most excited I am out of probably all the skill position players at the moment. Just to see Saquon in a reasonable organization with weapons that are going to allow him to not have to face safeties coming down in the box. To not have to face as big fronts because you know what? Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, they're going to just blow the top over you if you just sit there and, play man all the way across the board. He's got some receivers that can separate. It's going to force some of the safeties to sit back a little bit. And that's going to benefit him so much. I do think Philadelphia's offensive line is as good or better next season than the offensive lines he's been dealing with in New York. I'm not going to stand here and say that, the Philadelphia Eagles will be as good of an offensive line as they were last year. Probably not, but I still think they are very serviceable and very much in line with a New York Giants offensive line. I don't think New York Giants have, cornered the market on an elite offensive line compared to what the Eagles are going to be able to put forth next season. So I expect a big year out of Saquon. I think this is huge. I think it's very interesting, for fantasy football, for betting over-unders and things like that. Saquon, I would love to see him be a real big center point. I think he can take a lot of the ownership of the run game off of Jalen. Allow Jalen to continue running less, which is going to help his longevity, help his injury history. There's been some speculation last season. Was Jalen fully healthy? I don't think he really was. Obviously he was still playing in a lot of those games, but it didn't quite look right. And I think Saquon can take some of that pressure off. And obviously has been shown to be very productive when given an opportunity to be. And that in a less than ideal situation. So I think that one's very interesting. Moving on to one of the other kind of moves here, we have the Bengals actually trading. So this was interesting. We don't know yet as of this article, and I haven't heard quite yet exactly what the terms are. But the Bengals picked up Zach Moss, and there was, the rumor was they were going to release Joe Mixon. Well, they didn't. They actually traded him. He's going to go play for the Houston Texans. Go join CJ Stroud. What you'll notice, if we look at our tracker here, CBS Sports, I pointed this out in our last video. They were doing a great job of keeping the tracker on for everything. If I scroll here for a minute, let's see, where are the Houston Texans? Right here. Take a look at all the people they're signing, right? People they're re-signing on the defense to bring back, people they're adding, people they're trading for, paying Dalton Schultz, paying linebackers, paying a defense. Like, look at the defensive signings here. Safety, 4 cornerbacks, edge rushers, linebackers, really loading up. This is what you do when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You build the best team you can, and you can spend for it a bit. Bringing in a veteran running back like Joe Mixon, going to be a good fit. Pay the tight end, right? Keep CJ Stroud happy. Tight ends are typically one of the easier throws in the league to make. Keep him in, and then let's load up on that defense. Because typically you don't want to spend a ton on defense, maybe. Spend more on offense, but if you got a cheap quarterback, well, now you can afford to load up on defense and load up on other positions. Go grab a Dalton Schultz. Go sign a pretty decent contract for a linebacker. Go trade for Joe Mixon. Now, we'll see. I'm very curious. We'll see what the full details are on that trade. I don't know if we have full information on that just yet as I'm recording this, but Houston Texans doing what you should do when you have, a rookie quarterback. Green Bay Packers, we were talking about this. I'll just talk about it briefly. Josh Jacobs, that's a good pickup. It's a good pickup. Josh Jacobs is, in my opinion, very much like a younger Aaron Jones. You just got younger. Go for it. Yeah, disappointing. Aaron Jones has been there for a long time. Well liked in Green Bay. But, yeah. Josh Jacobs coming in. I think that was a good pickup. I think it was a smart pickup. Get a little younger. That's just the reality of running backs. Now, if you're a Packers fan, you kind of hate that Aaron Jones goes to the Vikings. That's not real nice. You don't want to see an in-conference rival picking up your running back. Disappointing. He's betting on himself with a 1-year deal, $7 million. They wanted him to take down to $6 million. He got an extra $1 million by going to Minnesota on the 1-year deal. I told you, there was just not room. When you sign Josh Jacobs to, roughly $12 million a year, you can't pay both of them $12 million a year. I mean, literally, Jones was at $12 million. What did they pay in Josh Jacobs? Oh, about $12 million a year, right? This is just a pure swap. We'll see how it works. Disappointing if you're Packers fans. You doesn't like to see him go to Minnesota. You'll have to see, though. That'll be an interesting one. But with that, I want to talk briefly about Justin Fields. You search for the young man, and stories aren't great. Fox Sports running a title. Maybe there wasn't a trade market. What's next? Is he going to be traded to an AFC West team? There's some reports. There's reports all over the place, but the general consensus is he is going to be a backup. And that's going to be a tough pill to swallow, and, it's just the reality. He doesn't win enough games. He's not explosive enough. I'm sorry, all the fanboys, fangirls, fan people out there. All you fans. At the beginning of this season, I don't get a lot of hate comments. But I got hate comments because I didn't put Justin Fields as like an elite quarterback. Because when we were ranking the quarterbacks, I said, I don't put him in this elite category. I got people mad at that. I think it looks like I was right. He's not that good. Now, tough situation for the Bears. They have made it pretty obvious and pretty clear that they're going to be drafting Caleb Williams. Okay? That's what's going to happen. It's pretty much a done deal. That's what it seems to be. So that leaves Justin Fields. They needed to trade him. Okay? Trade him or release him, but you have him under contract, so you want to trade him and get something for him. What the Bears decided to do is hang on to Justin and go, all right, let's see how some of these other teams work out. And to be fair, if you look at Justin, if things like Kirk Cousins staying in Minnesota happen, or Russell Wilson, staying in Denver, then being able to figure out something there. Unfortunately, some of the best landing spots that we had kind of projected maybe Justin Fields would be interesting at, an Atlanta, a Pittsburgh. I think he would have been very interesting in Pittsburgh. Just because that offense has lacked any explosiveness for a long time. And maybe he could energize it a little bit. Atlanta with the weapons was interesting, right? These teams kind of have all picked up who they want as their quarterbacks. There's not a lot of other options left. Rumors, the Raiders. It's not terrible, but I just don't see it happening. I think your best options at this point, if you're the Bears, is you just got to ship Justin Fields to whoever you can. There were decent trade partners that could have gotten you more than what you're going to get now. But they decided to wait and see how things would play out, thinking that a market would kind of materialize because, maybe Atlanta would get desperate because they couldn't get Kirk Cousins. Or Russell goes to Atlanta and Pittsburgh gets desperate. Those things didn't happen. And the Bears are kind of caught holding the bag, so to speak. They got this player that you don't really want him in the room. I know some people are saying, hey, hold him on till the draft. Maybe hold him on till the season. I think Chris Long, former player, made a comment today or yesterday saying, hey, keep Justin Fields. Because you know what? When that season starts, some contender is going to have some sort of injury, and they're going to need a backup. And then you have some value in Justin Fields. But if I'm the Bears, I don't want Justin Fields in the building when Caleb gets there. I don't want there to be any loss of focus on developing Caleb Williams if you're the Bears. You don't want to be distracted. We don't want to be sitting there. Caleb has one bad game and people are saying, oh, we need Justin Fields back. You also don't want in practice to have to give Justin a bunch of reps. You want to say, nope, there's one quarterback. Everybody knows it's Caleb. Sure, you can need a backup quarterback, But bring in a backup quarterback that's significantly older. Go find a Flacco type. I'm not saying go get Joe Flacco. I'm saying get a Flacco type. Somebody who is older, who can serve as a backup, who can mentor the young man in Caleb. Get him up to speed. Help him learn the pro game. You don't want Justin to be the backup. Justin doesn't really have a track record of being a great pro. So I just don't see the asset of keeping him. I say trade him for whatever you can get. There's some teams out there that could use a backup. There are. But the Raiders already kind of made their decision on their quarterback battle. And then, let's be honest, some teams will just draft a young quarterback if they still need a backup. So I don't think there's all of a sudden going to be a new market after the draft for Justin Fields. I say ship him off now. There's some teams that could use a backup. Some teams that probably would like to solidify that backup before the draft so that they don't have to worry about trying to get, a quarterback sometime in the second or third round after the top few players have gone. Let Justin go, sit behind somebody. If I'm picking the best spot for him, I kind of like the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, well-respected pro. If Jalen gets hurt, Justin Fields has a little bit of that mobility, right? Honestly, probably moves even better than Jalen does. Jalen's, maybe a bit bigger, better arm, obviously, but I think Fields kind of fits in Philadelphia. Will he go there? I don't know. I'm not making necessarily that prediction. That's probably my favorite destination for Justin Fields if we're looking for Justin Fields to thrive and do really well. But you'll have to let me know in the comments down below what you think. Where does Justin Fields end up? What are your opinions on running backs? I think we're seeing if you're really good at running back, you're going to get a contract. That seems to be the case. I don't see a lot of out-of-work running backs all of a sudden. I mean, even Austin Eckler, who last season was part of that conversation of, I don't know, running backs having problems, he gets picked up. So, yeah, I'm thinking running backs are still valuable. Maybe they're not as valuable as wide receivers are. That's kind of flopped, obviously. But running backs might start becoming, shall we say, a good bargain. So let me know down below what you think about the running backs. Where do you think Justin Fields ends up? And we'll see you tomorrow.